Hey, how's everybody doing today? So Julie Borowski this week uploaded a video titled 10 Questions for Conservatives. And even though I am a libertarian, I consider myself first and foremost a conservative. I don't think libertarian and conservative are mutually exclusive terms. I think a lot of times people confuse conservative with Republican, and they are not the same thing. Okay, the reason why I consider myself a libertarian is because there are no conservatives left in the Republican Party, or there are very few. You know, I would consider Ted Cruz a conservative. I would consider, obviously, Rand Paul as a conservative. Austin Peterson is a conservative. Most of the Republicans that you would think are libertarian leaning are actually true conservatives. They just stand out because there are no conservatives left in the Republican Party. So I'm going to take a stab at answering Julie's questions. These are 10 questions for conservatives. This is just my point of view, and I do not claim to be indicative of all conservatives, but here we go.
I did a 10 questions for liberals video, so it's only fair that I make a 10 questions for conservatives video. Same thing applies. I understand that not all of these questions are going to apply to every conservative. There's different types of conservatives, I get that, but this video shall go on. All government departments have waste, fraud, and abuse. Why do some of you treat Pentagon spending like a sacred cow?
I don't think Pentagon spending is necessarily a sacred cow. I think that obviously those of us on the conservative side of the spectrum want a strong national defense. I think that obviously we need to be a superpower. We have to be, okay? Because if we are not a superpower, then somebody will come attack us. We have to be the biggest kid on the playground. Now, I think we can remain the biggest kid on the playground while also cutting back our military spending a lot. There's a lot of waste and abuse in military spending just like everywhere else, and I don't think that there's any reason for the military to have to pay $70 for a hammer that you can send some private down to Lowe's to buy for $3. Okay, so yeah, there's definitely spots where we can massively cut defense spending. And I think most conservatives would be for that. But the problem is that you have the cronies in Washington that want to give their buddies that make hammers the lucrative government contracts. And to be honest, it really was, it was Dwight D. Eisenhower that coined the term the military-industrial complex. So again, I don't think treating defense spending as a quote-unquote sacred cow is really a conservative thing. I think that is just one example of how the Republican Party has veered away from conservative values.
You praise freedom, which is great, but shouldn't people have the freedom to smoke marijuana in their own homes?
Yes, people should have all the right to smoke marijuana in their own homes that they want to. And to be honest, you should be able to smoke marijuana out in the park if you want to. But the problem that you run into with conservatives is that there are a lot of drug addicts, and marijuana users are included in this. Not all of them, but a good substantial amount of them that are a drain on the welfare state. And I think if you really want to have a serious conversation about legalizing drugs, and all forms of drugs if you want to, I think you could get conservatives on board, but you really have to, one, take a look at your welfare state, and two, take a look at your self-defense laws. I mean, if a crackhead's going to try and rob me and I can shoot him, I'm less likely to be against him destroying his own life with crack. It's just, I don't think, like Ann Coulter pointed out on the John Stossel show a few years ago, I don't think conservatives are necessarily anti-drug. They're anti-drug addicts being abusers of the welfare state. So get rid of the welfare state and then we'll talk.
We make fun of liberals for being easily outraged. Is the NFL national anthem anything such a big deal?
No, the national anthem NFL protest is not a big deal. I think that as long as the organization is fine with it, the players have a right to do whatever they want to, that their bosses will allow. Now, their bosses do have the right to say, I mean, either stand or there's the door. And also, the patrons of the NFL have every right to not patronize that business anymore. But I agree with you. There's a lot of crybabying going on, and I don't care. If you want to boycott the NFL, then just boycott them. Stop watching the games. I don't want to hear about it because I don't give a fuck what you do. No, the national anthem.
Doesn't the death penalty give too much power to the government?
Now, this is an interesting question. Does the death penalty give too much power to the government? Maybe. Honestly, maybe it does. But there are a lot of things a lot of powers that we give to the government that are necessary for them to have as long as we keep them in check. And I think this is one of those things that's necessary, but it's also necessary to keep it in check. You don't have to agree with the death penalty, and obviously our judicial system isn't 100%. Sometimes innocent people do get convicted, but I think there are also cases where the death penalty is definitely needed. There are some people that they just forfeited their right to exist on this planet because of the heinous crimes that they committed. And I think that we should have very, very strict guidelines on how the death penalty can be used, but I still am going to say that I think that it's a necessary evil.
The U.S. government has 800 military bases around the world. If we want to reduce the federal government, shouldn't that also include reducing military bases?
Yes, I do think that we have entirely too many permanent military installations around the world. I think that it's past time to look at whether or not we still need them. Do we still need to be held over in some places that we've been since World War II? Do we still need to be in Germany? Do we still need to be in Italy? Do we still need to be in these other places that there's no threat there anymore? So yeah, I think that, and I think most conservatives also will agree that there's definitely a place that we can look at some of these permanent bases and look at dismantling them.
Edward Snowden revealed that the U.S. government is unconstitutionally spying on us. How exactly is he a traitor? Traitor to who? And yes, he did try to go through the proper channels many times.
I don't think Edward Snowden is a traitor, so there's that.
You can still respect police while calling out examples of police brutality when it happens, no? Likewise, can't you respect the military and oppose the wars? As you know, Washington politicians often do not have our best interests in mind.
Yes, you can absolutely be for the military and against the wars. And yes, you can support police and be against police brutality. And I think a lot of conservatives will point out when there is legitimate police brutality. I know Ben Shapiro's done it. Conservatives don't just blindly accept authority, even though you may think that they do, because a lot of libertarians are just anti-police, and they're gonna cry police brutality no matter what a police officer does. To a lot of libertarians, the police have no right to defend themselves, and they'll be the first person saying, well, did you have to shoot him? Couldn't you use the taser? Couldn't you use the pepper spray? Couldn't you blah, 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 blah? Look, all right, bottom line is, when you're on the front line, when you're in those shoes, when you're in the shoes of these soldiers, of these police, then maybe you'll understand. And I'm not even going to say even then you can troubleshoot them, because you cannot. You can only troubleshoot them once you're in their shoes, in their situation, okay? So, yes, there is a time when the police have crossed the line, and I think most conservatives call them on it.
Free trade is a capitalist idea. Benefits include increased growth, innovation, and standard of living. Was capitalist icon Adam Smith wrong?
Conservatives are in favor of free trade, and conservatives are in favor of global free trade. The anti-global free trade movement is a Trump thing. It's an alt-right thing. And Trump is not a conservative, and the alt-right, there are no conservatives in the alt-right. So, yeah, conservatives like free trade. Republicans, maybe not so much.
Some of you oppose gay marriage due to religious beliefs. I don't think I'm going to change your mind there, but why not push to remove the government from marriage? And that was 10 questions. Feel free to comment below and answer these questions for me.
Yes, absolutely. You can be against gay marriage and still support the idea that government should just stay out of marriage. And yes, I think most conservatives will agree that the government needs to get out of marriage. That was something that Ted Cruz even campaigned on. Rand Paul, he wants, the government out of marriage. I'm sure Austin Peterson does as well. All of the conservatives in the Republican Party want the government to get out of marriage. Thank you, Julie, for your questions. I hope you enjoyed my answers. As always, to everybody listening, there aren't very many of you, but thank you for listening and have a nice day.